So I'm going to introduce Dan Kelly here. For those of you who know me, I previously have been the chairman of the St. Croix County Republican Party and had the good fortune, maybe, to work very hard to help Brian Hagedorn get elected. And likewise, Dan Kelly. So I've hosted him at numerous events, heard him speak many times. And one of the things that really strikes me about Dan Kelly is one particular story that maybe he'll tell us tonight, we'll see, about a young student who asked him who his boss was. And his answer was phenomenal. I know he can hear me right now, so maybe he'll tell us that story in brief tonight. Okay, Judge Kelly, I think we can hear you now. You want to give me a...
Well, let's give this a try.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah? Outstanding. Good evening, everyone. How are you? It is so... Excuse me. I apologize. I've been doing a lot of talking today, and I have a handful of words left. And I want to spend them all with you. So thanks so much for inviting me to spend a little bit of time with you. What I thought I'd do is we give you just a little bit of an update on where we're at in the campaign, what we're doing, and my views on the role of a jurist. And then I'll have to apologize. We've got a very, very long drive home tonight and an early morning tomorrow. So I don't think I've slept since last Wednesday. So I'm going to try to do a little bit of that tonight. So I think probably where to start on this is with what the stakes of this election are. You obviously know that we have the Supreme Court election coming up just 2 weeks from today. Well, I suppose I should say it's the end of election season. So absentee voting has already been going on for about a week. Early in-person voting started today. And so 2 weeks from today will be the end of voting. And the decision before us is really pretty stark. It is the difference between the rule of law and the rule of Janet. The way I see it, there's enough room on our Supreme Court for the Constitution or for my opponent, but not both. So I think that the way, and I do love that story of the student, and I think it's useful in explaining how we do our work on the court, where the authority that we use comes from, and why it's so very important that we adhere to our Constitution and the rule of law. So let's start with that. There is a program we do on the Supreme Court. It's called Court with Class. What we do is we have students anywhere from middle school all the way up to law school. They'll come in, sit in on one of the arguments that we're hearing. And then over lunch, one of the members of the court will come out and do a brief presentation on how the court functions and what it's all about. And I've done that program many, many times, and I've loved doing it. But there's one that I will always remember. So we do this in the Supreme Court hearing room. And I don't know if you've had a chance to be there or see pictures of it, but it is built to impress. I mean, all the marble and the dark wood and the murals on the walls and the beautiful skylight, it is just stupendous. I still can't walk into that room without my heart skipping a beat. Well, there we were. We had just heard the argument, and I came out to do the presentation. And I told the students that when I was done, I'd take their questions. And so I was wrapping things up. And one of the students clearly had something on his mind. He was kind of bouncing around in his seat. And as soon as I said I was done, his hand shot in the air. Well, I had to know what he was thinking. So I called on him. And there we were in that beautiful room. And I was wearing my black robes because we just heard arguments. And so I was looking about as intimidating as I ever look. And that young man stood up, stared me dead in the eyes, and said, "Who's your boss?" That was a bold question for a student to ask in that kind of a setting. But it only took me a moment to realize I had just been asked the greatest question I was ever asked as a Supreme Court justice. Because I think it really does set up the proper relationship between the people of Wisconsin and the people who serve in government. And so I asked him what his parents' names were, and he told me. And I said, "Well, they're my boss." And then I looked at the rest of the students in the hearing room and I said, "Your parents are my bosses too." And I went back to the student and I said, how old are you? And he says, I'm 13. Pretty proud about that. Well, that was quite a question from a 13-year-old. And I said, you know what? In 5 years, you're going to be my boss too. Because that's how that works in the state of Wisconsin. All the authority to create and maintain governments belongs to the people of Wisconsin. We the people, right? It says so in the very preamble to our Constitution. You probably know how it goes. It starts out saying that we, the people of Wisconsin, grateful to Almighty God for our freedoms, to secure their blessing, to form a more perfect government, to ensure domestic tranquility, and to promote the general welfare, do establish this Constitution. That's a statement of ownership. That's the people of Wisconsin saying that document, that belongs to us, we the people. And the government it creates belongs to us, we the people. So how does it come to be that all that authority that you have, how does it come to be that those in government are exercising it if it belongs to you? Well, and the answer is this. You don't give it away. You don't sell it. You don't alienate it in any other way. You simply loan it to those in government. And as with all really important loans, we write out the terms of the loans so nobody forgets, and especially so those in government don't forget. And after we get done writing out that document, we call that a constitution. And so as I walk into Supreme Court chambers every day as one of your Supreme Court justices, I understood that the authority that I was using did not belong to me. It didn't even belong to the office. It belonged to all of you. And I was simply using it on loan on your behalf. And that has some really significant implications for what we do with that authority. Because as I look at your Constitution, I see that you've told us in the judiciary that you've got one job for us. You tell us it's just one thing, so please pay attention, do it well, but it's just one thing. Use the power that we've loaned to you to look at the existing law, use that to decide the cases to come before you, and then stop. That's all we've asked you to do. And go on to tell us that you're not even really interested in what we think about your laws, about whether they're good or wise or effective. You tell us that you have an entirely different branch of government with whom to have that conversation. We call it a legislature. And so that's just the one job that we have, to apply the existing law to resolve your cases. And so that's what I've done as one of your Supreme Court justices. And the evidence for that is for all the world to see, because every bit of work that we did on the Supreme Court, it's all in writing. It's all on the internet. And just to make sure that it's as easy as possible for you all to see what I did with the authority you loaned to me, we've listed out every single opinion I ever wrote on our campaign website, justicedanielkelly.com, because I want you to be able to look at that and be confident that every time I analyzed a case, every time I wrote an opinion, what I was doing was simply using the authority that you loaned to me to look at the existing law and use that to decide our cases without reference to personal politics or anything else. And so I think that's the way that the work of the court is supposed to be done. And therefore, that's what I talk about as I go around the state of Wisconsin during this campaign. I talk about the Constitution. I talk about the rule of law. I talk about judicial philosophy. Talk about what it means to be a good jurist and what characteristics you have to have. Now, that's a whole lot different from what my opponent does. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to listen to her. If you haven't, I actually encourage you to do so. I think you would see something stupendous. So what she does is she talks about her personal politics. That's all she talks about. Now, this is a problem, because what she's told us is that if she's elected, she intends to place herself above the law. Now, our form of government depends on the notion that there is no one who is above the law, and especially those who sit in public office. They have to know full well that they are subject to the law. So she has essentially submitted a Declaration of Independence from the Constitution, from the law, and from you. And in fact, I think that the way that she approaches the work of the court is exceedingly condescending. So what she's telling you is that she does not trust you to develop laws in conversation with your legislature that are appropriate for the state of Wisconsin. She thinks she needs to be on the court to tell you what laws you can and cannot have, to tell you what liberties you may and may not enjoy. And she arrogates all that power to herself. Now, what she's proposing for us is that she and 3 of her activist friends would rule the state of Wisconsin from a Madison courtroom. Did I mention that's a Madison courtroom? Well, I sure don't want to be ruled by lawyers. I've been a lawyer my whole life. And the last thing I want is to be ruled by lawyers from a courtroom in Madison. What I want is our constitutional structure that has been promised to us now for 175 years, that has been faithfully maintained by the people of Wisconsin. That's what we need to have on the court. And so that's what I've been doing. That's what I intend to do if the good people of Wisconsin return me to service as one of their Supreme Court justices. Now, as we draw near the end of this campaign season, I have 2 requests for you, if I could. The first relates to what it takes to run an effective campaign. Now, it's been noted that my opponent has a whole lot of money to spend, and she does. Now, we're going to have a whole lot behind us as well. Ultimately, we will be outspent, but I don't think enough to make a functional difference. So we're expecting at the end probably 1 1/4 to 1, something in that neighborhood. But the amount that has been that will be supporting our campaign, I think, will be sufficient to reach everyone in the state of Wisconsin so that they have the information necessary to understand why this election is important and what the different candidates stand for. But here's the thing: we're sophisticated people. We've heard campaign ads year after year after year, and after a while, they just kind of go blown by you. You hear them, maybe you remember them for a couple of minutes, and then they're gone. But what doesn't go blown by you, what doesn't decrease, is the personal touch. So if I could ask you to reach out to folks around you, because here's how I think it works. You've probably experienced this yourself. A friend, colleague, family member comes to you and says, I'd like to share a couple things with you. I think they're important. Well, that sticks with you for days, weeks, months even. So if you could reach out to 10, maybe 15 people that don't generally vote in spring elections and go to them and say, I've got a couple things I'd like to share with you. I think they're important. And then share with them what the stakes of the election are. Share with them what you think it takes to be a good Supreme Court justice, a servant to the people of Wisconsin, and then encourage them to come out and vote. If we all do that, this is going to be an easy election. But right now, it depends on you doing that. So that's my first ask. Second ask is if you would remember my wife and my children and me when you pray. This is a hard thing to do, running a Supreme Court election, especially for an introvert like me. It's really taxing to get out and do all the work that's necessary to be done. And it gets even harder when you have an opponent who is just lying one day after the next about me. One of the things that I found out during this election that I didn't want to find out is that when you put yourself forward as a potential servant to the people of Wisconsin, what you get to do is wake up every morning and learn something brand new about yourself that just isn't true. And I never expected that. So my opponent has been spending millions of dollars on ads that just lie about me. You've probably seen a number of them already. So I'm not going to go through each one of them this evening because we'd be here until the wee hours talking about lies, and I have no interest in doing that. What I will do is say that on our campaign website, which, by the way, is justicedanielkelly.com, at the top, there's a tab called Fact Check. And what we did is we have listed out all the lies that my opponent is telling about me, and then we talk about the truth. Now, in one way, I'm kind of grateful that her lies are so sloppy, because anyone in the world who's interested in doing so, with a couple of clicks on the internet, you can find out that what she's saying just isn't true. But we made it really easy, so we've compiled all of it in one place so that you can see it. But like I said, we'd appreciate so much your prayers, because that's hard to deal with. I like to pretend that I have a thicker skin than I do, but I don't. When people lie about me, when they lie about what I've done in my career, and they slander me the way that she does, that bothers me a lot. And there's a reason for that. And if I could take just a moment to share with you what it is, it's because I treasure the name my father left me. When I was growing up, we didn't have a whole lot in our family. I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters, and we didn't know we didn't have much at the time because we had 2 parents who loved us and made sure that we had what we absolutely needed. It was hard to make the dollars stretch from one month to the next. And one day, I was a teenager at the time. My dad sat me down. He says, "Now, Dan, when I'm done with this life, I'm not going to have a whole lot to leave you. But I will make you this promise. I will leave you a good name." A year after I graduated law school, his comments came to pass, and it didn't have much to leave me. A couple of cufflinks and a broken pocket watch. But he left me a good name. And I've treasured that my whole life. And my goal is to pass that good name down to my children. We have 5. And yet to hear an opponent out there who makes it her business to spend millions of dollars telling serial lies about me, trying to trash my father's legacy, that makes me angry. I didn't bargain for that when I decided to stand for election, but apparently that's what it means to seek to be a servant for the people of Wisconsin these days. So we are in a less civilized age, I'm afraid, and this is one of the prices that we have to pay. And I'm sorry that we have to pay it. I'm really sorry we have to pay it. So this is a difficult thing for us to do. So that's one of the reasons I asked for your prayers. It's because I've found over the years that there is strength and wisdom and peace in prayer. And I could use all of that I could possibly get. And I know my wife and our children would appreciate that so much too. So one thought I'd like to leave with you this evening before we have to get on the road is you might know that we had the first and only debate of the general election this afternoon, just a few hours ago. And I encourage everyone to go and take a look at that. I know it's available on YouTube. I think it's also available on Channel 3000, and it might be being rerun by a few media outlets around the state. But I think it's useful for you to take a look at that and see what my opponent has revealed herself to be. She said that she's just going to be a politician. She said that and I actually pushed her into a corner where she admitted that she lied about me and about the cases that I've handled because she didn't know anything else to do because we were pointing out the truth about her and her soft on crime record. And she figured she had to do something, and so her decision was to lie about me. Now, she said that during the debate, and I want everybody in Wisconsin to see that. So that's what I've got for you all this evening. And now I know my driver is anxious to get home. We've got a long, long drive ahead of us and an early morning tomorrow. So I want to thank you all so very much for giving me this time to talk with you. May God bless you and our great state of Wisconsin. Thank you so much, everyone. Take good care.
Well, really, I appreciate your time, Judge Kelly. It's always a pleasure to hear from you and hear you speak. Have you got time for one or two questions?
I'm afraid we've got to get running. We're already behind
All
the
right.
behind the ball here. So thank you so much for setting this up. I am so grateful that we've had this time to do this. I've been looking forward to being able to have a chance to talk with you all. And I'm glad for the technology that Zoom has offered us. I'd much rather be there in person with you and spend a little bit more time. But at least having a chance to talk with you through video this evening, I really appreciate it.
Well, we'll see you in person later next week. I think you're coming out. One more stop here in St. Clair County before the election. So
I'm looking forward to it. So all of you that can be there, if you can, that would be lovely. I'd love to shake your hand and have a little bit more opportunity to talk with you. And then we could do some questions at that point. All right.